Hey everyone, in this section I tried to combine chapters 12 and 13, that means the Keynesian and neoclassical perspective, so that it's easier for everyone to understand what's going on. So we can look at the effects of the Great Depression, where we had unemployment, fall in real gross domestic product, mass layoffs, and declining home values. All of this is going to cause the real gross domestic product less than potential gross domestic product. Potential gross domestic product is what we can produce using all our resources. That means using all the labor, using all the capital, using all the natural resources. According to Keynes, we can increase aggregate demand or shift the aggregate demand to the right by expansionary fiscal policy. And if we shift aggregate demand to the right, the real gross domestic product will definitely go to the right. So, according to Keynes, we need government intervention to pull the economy out of a recession. Unlike the neoclassical perspective, according to the neoclassical perspective, economy returns to full employment on its own without any kind of government intervention. This is the basic difference between these two models. Now, over here I have the short-run aggregate supply curve. This YP is the full employment output, or the potential gross domestic product. I can write aggregate demand is equal to consumption, investment, government expenses, exports minus imports, and aggregate demand is also the real gross domestic product. So we see we have a flat short-run aggregate supply curve to the left of the potential gross domestic product. I can use some numbers here for convenience. Say 100 is the potential gross domestic product. The real gross domestic product is 80. Definitely when the real is less than potential, it signifies a recession. If we shift the aggregate demand to the left here, from 81 to 82, I have another point of intersection between the short-run aggregate supply curve and the new aggregate demand curve. Looks like the output went down from 80 to 70. The prices are not changing. I can have a value for prices which is $10. Now, if I look at the vertical portion of the short-run aggregate supply curve, if I shift the aggregate demand curve from 80 to 83, I'm going to have a point of intersection here between the short-run aggregate supply curve and the new aggregate demand curve. What I see here is the prices went up, output stayed the same. Just not to make any of you confused here, on the flatter portion of the short-run aggregate supply curve, when aggregate demand changes, that means here we showed a decrease in aggregate demand, only output changes but not prices. But on the vertical part, if we increase aggregate demand, only prices changes, not output. The next slide, you can take a look at this yourself. It looks at what increases aggregate demand or the real gross domestic product and what decreases the real gross domestic product. Again, aggregate demand is a combination of these components. If any of this increases, aggregate demand shifts to the right. any of this decreases, aggregate demand will shift to the left. Now here we are going to look at the two building blocks of the Keynesian analysis. According to Keynes, the economy goes through short-run economic fluctuations. That means we can be in a recession, we can also be in an inflation, and the real gross domestic product is less than potential gross domestic product when we are in a recession. The second building block of the Keynesian analysis is sticky wages and prices. By sticky, we mean a situation where wages and prices are not gonna go down even if the demand decreases. So let's just go and show you the sticky wages and prices graphically. We have two markets here. One is the market for labor and the other is the market for final goods. So on the horizontal axis I have labor, vertical axis is the price of labor, which is wages. So initially my intersection is this point here where the demand curve is intersecting the supply curve. Say my wages are equal to $10. The quantity demanded for labor is 100 units. Now the demand is going to go down and we have another point of intersection here, which is E1. So my wages should go down, but because I have sticky wages, my wages are going to stay fixed at 10 and the quantity of labor demanded goes down from 100 to 80. So basically there looks like some unemployment. Now if I look at the market for goods here, so I'm just going to keep the price $10 again for convenience. Same thing happens, the demand is going to go down from D0 to D1. Instead of the prices going down, the prices are fixed at $10. The quantity of output is going to go down. That means when the quantity of output is down, we say we have a fall in real gross domestic product. Okay, so what's going on here is I have an excess supply of labor here and excess supply of goods here. Just I was talking to you in the previous slides, we have sticky wages from this graph. This leads to unemployment. Unemployment means excess supply of workers. We have sticky prices here, prices not going down, and this is going to lead to a recession. Okay. Now let's look at the next slide here. So this is just showing us a recession. This is my full employment output and this is my real gross domestic product. Whenever the real gross domestic product is less than full employment output, we are going to see a recession. Okay. Now there is another factor we need to look at here, which is the expenditure multiplier. It says if government spending increases by 1, the aggregate demand is going to increase by more than increase in government spending. So we have a concept of marginal propensity to consume, and this is equal to change in consumption over change in income. Say my marginal propensity to consume is equal to 0.75, and after that we have the formula for multiplier, which is defined as 1 over 1 minus MPC. So I have 1 over 1 minus 0.75 is 0.25. So the multiplier is equal to 1 over 0.25. So this is equal to 4. So this is where the expenditure multiplier comes into play. If government spending increases by $100 billion, the real gross domestic product will increase by $100 billion times the multiplier, which is equal to $400 billion. So that's what we mean by the cumulative effect of GDP is larger than the initial increase in spending. All right, that's all we have with the Keynesian perspective. Thank you very much.